Hey, everybody, I'm John Granado, and that's Josh Jordan. You can hear us on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. You can also see Josh's work at sportsmaphouston.com. This is SportsMap Texans, and we're going to talk some Texans football. If you missed it this week, Panthers owner David Tepper fired coach Frank Reich and answered to the media why Carolina drafted Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. He almost seemed to blame, he implied that it was kind of the Texans' fault because they forced him to draft Bryce Young at number one because Houston backed out of the three-team deal with the Bears and the Panthers. Has CJ Stroud's performance this season indirectly blown up the Panthers franchise? I say yes. I think he is just as responsible, Josh, for Frank Reich's firing just as much as 1 in 10 is.
Oh, 100%. It's what CJ is doing has changed everything for these guys. I mean, he's been fantastic. And look what they gave up, too, with the Panthers. They gave up 2 firsts and 2 seconds, and they gave up DJ Moore. By the way, he already has 1,000 yards receiving this year. He's 5th in the NFL. So, I mean, they gave up an incredible haul. But, yeah, it just felt like they were blaming kind of Caserio for backing out of the deal and really firing all these coaches. I mean, McCown's out of there now. Pretty much anybody having to do with the offense, they got out of there. This hurts Bryce Young more than it hurts anybody. And if you he endorsed Bryce Young, of course, because that's what you would expect. Why even bring up CJ Stroud in that press conference? You know, like, wouldn't you just say we believe in Bryce and we're excited about him going forward? You know, to compare him to CJ Stroud and bring him up, I thought was curious.
Yeah, I think he's got to answer for it because it's the obvious question. You guys blew it. Instead of taking CJ Stroud, the taller, the more, the arm, the everything about him, instead of doing that, you guys went for the little fella, and it's not working out. And I think that's been a question in Carolina, or that's been an accusation. Listen, he's not in a bubble. He knows what's going on out there. When you watch CJ Stroud and you watch Bryce Young, you're watching, you know, and those were the two guys that you were looking at. And the thought was Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud as well. You got to answer that question. I think you've got to bring it up. You can't let that elephant in the room just sit there.
I think that's fair. I don't know if I would have used CJ's name. You know what I mean? like, you know, maybe I'd have been like, we had some other options that we were looking at. And because that deal changed, we were no longer going to 2, we were going to 1, and we had Bryce ranked the highest. So that's where I'm just like, it's kind of a bad look when you're talking about the guy you didn't draft and mentioning him in your press conference.
Yeah, listen, maybe a little bit embarrassing for the Texans this week. Pat McAfee was making fun of JJ Watt, how many empty seats there were at the stadium. Pat McAfee, you haven't had to watch Texans football. You did not watch one Texans game the last 3 years. So don't tell us about not having people at the stadium. Nobody was going to the stadium because it was an unwatchable product. They lost a lot of faith in fans. The fans lost a lot of faith in the organization. It's starting to come back, though. It's going to take a little bit of time. We were blind for 20 years with this organization, selling out every single game. Give us a break, okay? Because I gave up my season tickets. I had season tickets for nearly 20 years. I said I can't do it anymore. I can't give this money to this organization. And that's when you tell an organization, when you won't give them your money anymore, you tell the organization, we don't like what you're doing, and they change things.
It's true. Well, and he doesn't realize what we went through up close. The Bill O'Brien fighting with fans, trading Hopkins away for nothing, the Jack Easterby disaster, Cal McNair meeting with Deshaun and making him think he'd have more control, and then that didn't happen, and then Deshaun requests a trade. And then you have the whole Watson scandal to go on top of that, firing back-to-back one-and-done coaches. I mean, that's a bad look for any team. You can't blame the fans for taking a while to come back around. But I will say, I looked it up. According to ESPN, they're 9th in attendance. So it's not terrible, but we do see there's not a lot of people in the seats, and there is something to it. CJ Stroud wouldn't come out and be like, hey, could you guys be in the stadium, please? JJ Watt kind of pleaded with the fans with that too. So there is something to that. The waiting list thing, that doesn't feel like that's really a thing anymore. You know, I just went and looked on the ticket market. I could get tickets to the Texans for like $50 to see the Broncos. There's plenty of tickets available. So there is something to it. I think it's just going to take a little time. I mean, what else can you ask for, though? D'Amico and CJ, they look like the real deal.
Give us a little time. We'll be back there. There's no question about it. We're stupid. We'll be back. No, we weren't that stupid, though. We went away. We will be back, though.
Now we're back.